Okay, so do you think that you would attack fatherhood in another way if you had sons, biological sons, I should say, like because you fathered other young men, but like yes,
Um,
like DJ Dean Jr.
I would never, I would never do that. But and I don't. I'm letting you know I'm going to kind of tiptoe into another one of the questions I think you'll be asking.
Okay.
I I don't think that I would father differently because even though I had that experience as a father figure, right, that really wasn't my introduction to fatherhood. I
Mm,
have always had strong fathers around me, right? And
okay.
shout out to father figures, taking nothing away from father figures, but a
Right.
father who is there for his children hits different. My father, Jeffrey Emerson Tolbert, my uncles, James Daniel, Gary DeBerry Sr., my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Floyd H. Flake, right? These are people who, in many different ways,
Hmm.
parented boys, girls, right?
Hmm.
Left legacy, are leaving legacy, established values, and I think as somebody who loves to think, I've always been conscious of like pulling examples and models and pieces of
Mm.
like, oh, that feels cool, that doesn't. Like my Uncle Gary and I had historic fights, like ways of him telling me what a man should be. And I was just like at 11 years old, nah, bro, that's not it. Right.
Oh
But
wow.
everything else that you're doing, as a dad, like I rock with, right. And since then I've come around to see some of his ways and vice versa, I think. But I've always had fathers who modeled strong presence,
Mm.
right? And I think we talk sometimes in faith about the ministry of presence, and I
Hmm.
think fathers who are there, fathers who are unafraid to show up with vulnerability, with
Hmm.
honesty, with transparency, fathers who are not afraid to say, yeah, you know what, I might not have gotten this one right, but
Mm.
I'm also not
Yeah.
going to use that as an excuse to not try again, right? Like I'm going to get back on this horse
Right.
because fathering is this journey. So I don't think that it would be different if I had sons. Yeah, I just try to raise people.
That's great. Listen, that just speaks to your like sense of equality. I love it. And it makes so much sense. And the only reason why that this question comes up is because I do see a difference.
Mhm.
And I would hope that more parents, mothers, and fathers would realize, you got to kind of just raise people, like you said. And there's got to be that balance. And you definitely did reach into my other question regarding like inspiration and influence. So thank you for going there. I love it. Um, and also regarding presence, right?
Mhm.
Thank you for mentioning that because the other part of this whole conversation regarding unveiling myths and the lack of presence, because they always say black dads aren't present. It's so multifaceted because like you said, there's vulnerability, there's conversations, there's actions that the child see. It's not just you're physically present, right? Presence,
Mhm.
covers an umbrella of like just different things, like again, physically,
Yeah.
conversation, maybe even a physical spanking, whatever. Like you need to be there to discipline me,
Mhm.
in whatever way that best suits me or teaches me. um Okay, so okay, you know what? Yeah, let's go there because you already touched on that. Have you had any fears or insecurities that you faced stepping into fatherhood, and have you overcome said insecurities or fears?
Yeah. Obvi- yeah, obviously yes, right? Like without even doing the mental checklist to think of what they are, yes, they're very real fears in fatherhood. Um, I'll say my biggest one, and this was fatherhood, this was manhood, this was personhood.
Mm,
My dad, his like one of his lasting quotes. He passed away when I was a freshman in high school. He
I'm
always used to say,
sorry.
"Don't be like me, be better than me."
Mm,
And I never understood why he would say that because to me, right, learning his mistakes and errors later on in life. At the point where he left this physical plane, there was not an ascension above what he represented. So it felt like he had kind of burdened me with like this impossible task, right? Like
Mm.
this, like I'm rolling a stone up a hill and then it's rolling back down, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I think with fatherhood, I am still sometimes in my own head trying to measure the job that I'm doing against the job I feel like my father would have been doing.
Mm. Okay.
And I have not overcome that, right? That, you know, my father gave so much of the stuff that people credit me for, are gifts that my parents and in large part my father gave to me, right?
Wow.
Like, oh, you're so intelligent. My father made weekend field trips of walking to the library, getting 3 books, coming
Mm.
back and finishing them before we went back next Saturday, right? Like,
Wow.
so I'm looking at the way that I'm raising my children, and I don't know, right? Like I kind of wish that he were here so I could just be like, yo, Dad, am I doing a good job? Like,
Mm.
um, and so not having that, I think, is a consistent challenge. I alluded previously to the complex, you know, family situation that I have going on right now. There are real times where I want to look, and with regard to presence, am I showing up well for both Acacia and Zuri, knowing that it necessarily has to look different, but I don't want them to feel loved differently.
Mm.
Am I
Okay.
showing up sufficiently for both of them? And am I exceeding what is expected of me? And even that phrase of like expectation, like whose expectation? I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fear, that's a nervousness, not quite an anxiety, but it is something that I think about a lot.
Right.
I think about, right, navigating this line of, you know, freedom, but also boundaries and respect and restrictions. Am I doing a good job at preparing these young people to be ready for the world that they're going to face?
Wow.
That's something that kind of keeps me up at night, because this
Wow.
world right now is already so very different from when I was growing up. And it's like, I don't know if I know how to parent the child who's going to be 20
Yeah.
in 2035, right? Like, I don't know. This world is changing
Mm.
so rapidly. So those are things that I think about a lot. I try to read and like stay up, right? One of the things I follow, understood.org. I don't know if anybody does that, but like they talk about kind of like neurodiversity and like how children are responding to changes in the education system and yada yada, whatever,
Wow.
whatever. I just try to stay up on stuff, but I don't
Good.
actually ever know if I'm doing a good enough job to just.
First of all, I just want to say kudos to all you parents out there. And I see you, Prince. Prince, I see you. Prince also has a son. I think he's 16. He says that same quote to his son, don't be like me, be better. And Mari had made a comment earlier too about her daughter. Um, I think being a parent is very challenging, but being a parent during a pandemic, I think it's a whole, like, I mean, we're already in the age of technology. I get it, but I didn't realize we was in the age. Like I got a pair of blue blocking glasses in every room in my house because I'm always at a screen because I have
Yeah,
to be.
yeah,
Even in my car, GPS, like I'm always at a screen. So, and with the age of technology comes exposure, uh, the internet to
yeah,
kids. And
yeah,
there's some things on the internet that's too
yeah.
much for me. Like I can't even look at car crashes on the internet, Lord. So I think, I give kudos to you guys who are fathers during this era. And then, oh my God, in 2035, I'm afraid. Like there's gonna be the Shade Room 3.0, like, like God. So, and Dean, something that you and I have in common, I tend to overthink. And I'm not apologetic about it at all because I'm very intelligent as well. And I do a lot of my own research too, just like you. So in that, and you like thinking and kind of questioning and like the what ifs, let's just say, you have a mentor, I mean a mentee, and someone came up to you and was like, Mr. Tolbert, like, I don't know if I'm being a good son and I don't know if I'm being a good student. Like, What would you say to counsel them, and in what ways does one measure their progress or measure their success? Like, what would you counsel? What would your counsel look like to a young man who's asking you these types of questions?
Sure. So I think, am I being a good student? Am I being a good son? Are pretty different things.
I'm
Um,
sorry, I just threw that out there,
no,
but you get
it's
what I'm
cool.
trying to say.
It's cool. So yeah, it's fine. I think for me, the standard measurement, and not even a measurement. This is actually just a check. Like, let's answer this question, and then we can figure out where we're going
Okay.
from here. Are you doing your best? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And always clarifier questions follow that. Do you get the sense at the end of the day that you have given as much energy as you had to this thing that you say is important to you?
Mm.
Right? Like, are you, and a good check for that is, do you go to sleep tired?
Mm.
Or are you up on your phone scrolling for 2, 3 hours before you fall asleep? If
Mm.
that's the case, there's energy that you could have expended doing
Okay.
something else, right? Because 2 to 3 hours of social media or scrolling or whatever, that's in excess, right?
Mm.
That's not just like, let me wind down. That is you have, your brain has started picking up waves again to engage in another activity.
Right.
So if you get at the end of the day that you have expended as much energy as you could, and you still have these questions of, am I doing enough? Am I good? Am I performing well? Well,
Yeah.
then we just need to talk about how the energy is being expended, right? Like, or how the energy is being spent. You are giving all that you have, but maybe all that you have can be given in a different way, right?
Mm.
And so I think it is very much living life by that standard,
Okay.
because other people will have different standards. If some people can be A students without studying, some people have
Ah,
to give their all
that's
to be
true.
an A student. Some
True.
people naturally are not question askers, right? So they'll never be seen by a parent or by somebody who is judging a parent as a kid who's always in grown folks' business. Some folks are naturally inquisitive. And so if I'm telling you, don't ask questions, don't
Mhm.
talk, don't speak unless you're spoken to, that may be very opposite of a child's natural